Welcome to the Creepin' It Real Show, your one-stop shop for not-so-serious weird news, TV and movie reviews, and some paranormal shenanigans. We'll also take dives into what's going on in pop culture. You can follow us on Twitter at creepin_it, on Facebook at facebook.com/creepinitrealshow, and you can also shoot us an email at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com. Welcome to the Creepin' It Real Show. I'm one of your hosts, Yardley, live and direct from Atlanta, and I want to bring in my co-host, Moni. How are you doing out in the great state of California?
I'm hanging in. Shout out to all the parents right now, particularly, I don't know, our district is calling this spring break. So, they're not helping with any curriculum of any sort. So we're just teaching our kids with shit that we make up while trying to work and live. And it's bullshit, y'all. So much love. I see you out there, parents.
Well, just hang in there. Hopefully, in a few months, all of this type of stuff will blow over. How you doing, Christy? Is it as chilly in North Georgia as it is down here?
Yeah, surprisingly, it's a lot colder than I thought it was going to be. It's really sunny, and then you open the door and you're going, oh, very cold. I don't know what happened to the warmth, but it's now gone. So everything else is going well. I had a little bit of a health scare last week, and I'm feeling a lot better this week, but I'm still kind of iffy. So, but I'm here, and I'm happy we're doing a show because I'm bored as fuck. So,
well, all right. Hopefully this will kind of, help to give you something to do. I know that things seem kind of dreary, and hopefully our podcast reaches our audience in the best of health, because there's definitely a lot of stuff going on. But we've got to push on and keep on doing this podcast thing. So we might as well just kind of dive into a discussion of what we've been watching lately. And then after that, we will do a brief review of Death Bell, which is on Hulu. So, Moni, what have you been up to on the watching front?
So I like I said, I'm probably one of the only bitches in the apocalypse that has been more busy than ever. So I haven't done a ton of binging. I haven't even had time to be bored, which is just wrong. But one thing my friends and I are doing in the horror vein, we are watching Travel Channel, just cheesy, shitty horror shows. Travel Channel has so many just bad haunting shows, and we're watching them in real time together. So we're just sort of just texting or messaging during the whole thing. So we've been watching, last night we did a couple episodes of A Haunting, which is the classic, late 90s, early 2000s. You'll get visits from Ed and Lorraine Warren during the show, and lots of famous hauntings you've heard about and some you haven't, just badly recreated. And then I've been watching one called Amish Haunting, is what I think it's called. It's got Amish in the title. And it's brutal, you guys. It's super, super. It's based off of Amish folklore and sort of what they actually believe. And it is so just not only did she get haunted by a demon for looking at another man, but then she got shunned from her whole community and lost everything. And it's just okay. And another one I've been watching, because I love abandoned asylums and things, is there's one called Haunted Hospitals, which I feel is also super relevant right now with just so many people unfortunately passing away. But it's been interesting. Also, not horror related, but things I've been watching. 100 Humans. My husband's been watching that. It's on Netflix. It's a series of science experiments social experiments that they do with 100 different people. And I've been finding it really interesting, just looking at what people's stereotypes are and gender bias and different things. It's kind of fun, but they do it in a lighthearted kind of funny way. I recommended this movie before, but it became available to rent or to purchase. The Gentleman is the newest Guy Ritchie directed film. It's got a shit ton of famous, Matthew McConaughey is the main character, but they have a ton of famous people in it. You'll recognize everyone. And it's a fantastic movie. It's probably one of my favorite movies of all right now. So I highly, highly recommend you at least rent that. And then Birds of Prey is the Harley Quinn movie that we had talked about having the unfortunate name. It didn't do as well in the box office, but it is Margot Robbie, the illustrious, gorgeous Margot Robbie. And I find it to be a really fun girl power, not super just superhero, but just kind of a good hard-boiled noir anti-hero type of movie, and I actually recommend it for women and girls too, because it's like I said, it's a lot of girl power and girls kicking ass. And then obviously what all of America and possibly beyond are watching is The Tiger King. Damn that Carol, everything is her fault.
Yeah. That's a crazy, fucked up show.
It's amazing. It's what we needed right now.
It really is. It would just kept getting, and I kept thinking, oh, this is crazy. Wow, it's over. Oh, there's another episode. Oh, this one's even crazier than the last one. How many episodes is this? Because I'm getting scared.
Podcast, and apparently this hasn't even scratched the surface of how batshit that show is. So I would like to listen to that podcast in my ample fucking free time right now. But I've heard there's even more to this story for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. At some point I have to check it out because all I've been doing is seeing it in my queue. And then obviously, online, I've seen a bunch of, memes pertaining to that show. And I think I'm going to have to, at some point, dive in. I'm not necessarily excited to do so, but people seem pretty jacked over it.
It's basically people of Walmart with tigers.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's basically a zookeeper who's a polygamous gay man in Oklahoma, of all places. That's just, I lived in Oklahoma for 9 years. So just, how did I not know about this guy or hear about this place? I'm really kicking myself. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. It's basically Don't Fuck with Cats, the Redneck edition, Yardley. Like, as far as like, there's like murder for hire and crimes and a possible murder and a missing husband. And it's pretty bizarre.
Okay. Moni, did you want to expand? I see the watch party opportunity.
Yeah, we did a practice one. We being Christy and then a friend of mine. We did a watch party on the Netflix platform that allows you to do it. It worked out pretty well. And we've had a lot of interest from our creepers to do something like that. And I think it's time. So it looks like, Yardley, you've already seen this movie, but obviously we hope you can join us.
I've seen it
I was
too.
thinking the platform, since I've heard so much buzz. And Christy, you have not seen it, have you?
Yes, I've seen it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you have? Well, shit. Okay, we might have to pick another movie, but I was just thinking this one had so much buzz right now that it would be a fun one to watch together. So I say we either pick something with a lot of buzz or we pick something that is super, super cheesy that we can just sit and make fun of the whole time.
I think we should go with our first round, something cheesy, because I have a feeling people are going to be more focused on just chit-chatting than actually watching the movie.
Okay.
But the platform was pretty good. I mean, it was an interesting concept. I just couldn't quite figure out. I mean, I'm assuming, anyway, you watch it and we can all talk about it, but I was just like, at the end. It didn't really give me any answers.
I've seen so much buzz. Yardley, what did you think of it? I know we're jumping ahead a little, but what did you think of it?
I mean, I thought it was cool. I actually just recently saw it in the last couple of days. It was interesting and it sucked me in. I can see how if a person wasn't paying attention to what was going on, they could probably take them out of it a little bit. But it was something that, I thought it was enjoyable for what it was. And, I wouldn't mind at some point that, if we could talk about it because, I don't know. I think a lot of people are definitely into it. And I think it's trending pretty high in the Netflix queue, because usually I know when I log on to mine, now I see it's like a bar that has what are the most popular, like 1 through 10 or something like that. I don't know if that's getting that on yours or not, but I see it floating around there. So, hey, if we ever want to expand upon it, I'm definitely down.
Yeah. I just, some movies I enjoy not having like the ending explained, but this one I kind of felt like they left us a little short in the ending. That was kind of my only, and I was watching it while I was sick. So I don't know if I was really like, woo, while trying to watch it, but I was just kind of like,
There are certain things that happen in it that I don't think I'll ever forget. It was like the guy was trying to climb up with a rope and the dude poops on him.
Shit on him, yeah.
Yeah, so there's certain stuff that's always going to stick with me from that movie. Now, Dark on Netflix, Christy, is that a pretty good show?
I really enjoyed it, and it's weird because when you're watching it from the beginning, there's this underlying kind of dark theme, and you think you know exactly what's going on. And then they throw something at you that you're like, oh, wow. And then something else gets thrown at you, throughout the first season. You're just kind of like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it's just a really bizarre show. And I really enjoyed it. I've watched both seasons, and that's all we got so far. I don't know if we're going to get any more, but it's definitely worth a watch. It's, German, but they did a pretty decent job with the there's subtitles, but with the what do you call it, where you
What, the dubbing?
dubbing, thank you. With the dubbing, so I'm almost like, don't even notice it's not them not really talking, if that makes any sense. It was just like, they did a good job with it. So yeah, it's different. It takes place in like a town with a nuclear power plant, and there's all this shit going on. And yeah, I won't go any further into details because, again, you always think you know what's happening and you don't. So it's definitely worth a check out. And it's only 2 seasons. All the seasons are pretty long, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
Oh, okay. And something that we probably should have done when we were talking about the platform a little bit earlier. So for the creepers who didn't really know about this movie, it's basically like a Spanish science fiction horror thriller. It came out a year ago. And pretty much the film is just set in a large tower-style facility where residents are periodically switched at random between floors. They're fed by the means of a descending platform, which is initially loaded with food that gradually descends through the levels of the tower. So obviously a system clearly bound to conflict as inmates at the top levels have a chance to take as much as they want, leaving increasingly little for those below. That's not just it. There's other stuff that goes on during all of this, but it's definitely something that'll suck you in. So I had to put that in, y'all, because I know that we had a quick discussion and we didn't even say what it was. I'll just go ahead and dive in. Obviously, I saw the platform Containment, which is a Netflix series that follows an epidemic that breaks out in Atlanta, leaving a section of the city, which happens to be Zone 6, which is where I live, cordoned off under quarantine, and those stuck on the inside have to fight for their lives.
Oh.
I have gotten through about, I guess, like 6 episodes. I think it has 9 or 10. Hell, it might have more than that. It's okay. I had to watch it because it was based in Atlanta, and like with the coronavirus going on, this is a virus as well, but it pretty much kills you in 14 hours. So I think the stakes are a little bit higher. But I do think that the show does have an issue sometimes with kind of expanding on characters that probably don't deserve the time. But I would like the focus to probably be a little bit more with the people that you actually care about in the series. But we also found out that it will not be renewed for a season 2. There were a couple of series that Netflix canceled recently. And V-Wars also got canceled, but Containment won't be back as well. So if you want to check it out, it's interesting. It's definitely dope to kind of see a lot of locations in Atlanta. But most of the series revolves around the contained area of Zone 6. So I would just say check it out. And, if you're local, definitely.
Awesome. Okay.
And outside of that, Bad Boys for Life dropped on digital a month early. I think the Blu-ray comes out at the end of April, but they dropped it. As Moni was saying, there are a lot of movies that are getting dropped to VOD because, quite frankly, I think they just want to go ahead and get as much of that bag as they can, seeing as no one is going to theaters. But I love Bad Boys for Life. I talked about it on the show before, and that was my purchase. I had to basically, I told myself I wasn't going to spend a ton of money on movies, so I had to pick between Bad Boys, Birds of Prey, and the Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. So Bad Boys won out, and then probably next once the price drops, which will probably be soon, I will get Birds of Prey and then maybe hold my nose to fill out my collection of Star Wars.
So I guess I shouldn't check out The Rise of Skywalker then, because it doesn't sound like it's great.
If you're not that connected to it, it's definitely visually they did a good job. I think a lot of the beef that people have is the inconsistency of the plot lines throughout 3 movies. But hey, if you want some eye candy, it's definitely a beautiful film, though.
Okay.
Christy, have you checked out The Mandalorian on Disney Plus?
I don't have Disney Plus.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Because I was going to say, I'm not a huge Star Wars person, but The Mando was a really fun story, I think. It was well told.
Yeah, it's pretty much, it's one of those things where I think there are a lot of people who joined the Disney Plus during their free trial and might have paid for it for a month or two if they just wanted to see The Mandalorian. And I think a lot of people dropped it after that because Disney has they have a big library of stuff, but there's only so far that you can go watching Disney if you're grown. I get it. It's great for the kids. But if you want retention, though, I think they're going to have a hard time until they start coming out with a lot more original content. But we'll see what happens on that front. So Are y'all ready to dive into the Death Bell review?
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm just going to give full disclosure. I didn't make it 100% through this movie.
I'm totally not surprised.
I did, and I still don't know how it ended because I'm like, what happened? Why did they end it with the girl and looking that way? And what?
Basically, what I did is not to cause confusion of the listeners and more confusion of ourselves as being people who have seen this thing. I just pretty much dumbed it down to like a paragraph or two, like an overview. And then after that, we'll just talk about some of the deaths and which ones were our favorite.
Okay, nice.
So for the most part, Death Bell is about a group of 20 high school students that are partaking in an elite class to prepare for a college exam. Turns out that this is like a real life exam that they have in Korea, some type of a huge exam. I don't know that everybody has to take this in school, but essentially the students, they're at school and a voice over the PA system announces that questions will be posed to the class and a failure to answer them in time would lead to their deaths. So many students die, and we discover that things that happened was a plot by the father who was posing as a school security guard of a former deceased student exacting revenge to lure out the killer of his daughter that worked at the school. So we discover the killer was a teacher who killed the security guard's daughter because she was going to report a bribery her parents made to him to change her grades so that she could gain entrance into the school, giving her an unfair advantage. The security guard ends up getting revenge for his daughter by killing the teacher, but leaving a trail of innocent death in his wake. Okay, that was basically the movie in a nutshell. The thing that I did find odd was a guy who loved his daughter so much kills other people's daughters.
Yeah.
And to get revenge just to lure out the teacher who he, find out who the teacher was that murdered his daughter.
And I can't say I'm not surprised who it was. I was like, no shit. Guy was an asshole. Wasn't he?
Totally. You're like, hey, I could have or maybe didn't see that coming, but that was a movie in a nutshell. Now, there are a lot of things that are crazy that happen, throughout this movie. Some of them are really eye roll heavy because when you see the individual that's abducting these people, you're like, just whoop her ass. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not like it's some big brute. It's just weird. It's like, how can this person, take out these people? But they did have a handful of pretty cool deaths that coincided with the students not being able to answer the questions that were posed to them. So for me, there was a couple that kind of stood out. There was one student who was killed by being suffocated with candle wax drops and then dropped from the ceiling all the way down to the gym floor. I thought that was an interesting way to go, to get suffocated by candle wax. So I thought that was kind of creative. Would y'all give that pretty high marks?
Yeah,
I always like different kinds of deaths, so there you go.
Yeah, that one was my favorite for sure. I just thought it was really clever to suffocate by candle wax.
I think my other favorite one, but this is something that we've probably seen in other movies, was the student that was killed by being put into a washing machine. And then I thought about how rough that would be to die that way. That's just, it's really fucked up.
How do you die in a washing machine, especially a small one? Because I was thinking, like, as it's spinning, if it's small enough, you're you're not going to get bounced to death. So is it the spin that kills you? Like, what is it? How do you die? Is it the water? Does the water fill up? Like, I couldn't figure out how it was she died.
Well, it has to be the water because you have to understand, like, you're constantly spinning. So one, your equilibrium is off. And then, like, you're not going to be able to, like, well, I can time, when to kind of poke my nose up at the thing. I think that's just crazy. There's nothing that you can do, and it's probably a horrible, slow way to drown. So I don't think that it would be over quickly, which is probably something that you would probably want. My other one was probably there was someone. Oh, the death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah,
with the mouth stuffed with flower petals.
Very poetic.
Yeah, I know. But whenever I looked at this, and then I'm going to get into the ones that you guys can talk about, whichever ones that you found were the favorite. I just kind of feel like there wasn't enough. You know what I mean? I felt like that there should have been even more of a laundry list of people who died. And I think that like 10 people definitely passed away in this movie. But it just seems like, I don't know, I wanted more. But maybe that's where I am at because y'all got me watching all these horror movies. But any other kind of, got your attention?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I liked the candle wax one. I'm kind of a traditionalist in a way because I don't necessarily know if it was really the murder that I enjoyed, but the first one where she was in the tank drowning, it was just funny because they were all like not even paying attention to her while she's like drowning in the tank. And I can't remember who they were paying attention to, but somebody was like freaking out on the floor and nobody really knew what was going on. And then they turn around and, the girl's dead and they're like, oh shit. Like that's kind of when it got really real for everybody. And I just thought it was kind of an interesting, like, while it was all going on, they were all paying attention to something else. And then all of a sudden the bell goes off or whatever, and the girl's dead in the tank, and everybody kind of turns around and goes, oh, this is actually real. So it was just, I liked how they progressed from just kind of running around and screaming to turning around and, oh, she's actually really dead. Shit's real. And oh crap.
Wow. Well, were there any that got your antenna up, Moni?
No, the only thing with this movie for what I saw of it was trying to think about what other films must have influenced this one or what this one reminded me of. I had, my husband was watching it too, and we were like, this is kind of Saw meets, like, what other kind of films did this remind you guys of, if any?
I was going to go with Saw.
Yeah.
Now that you said it, I feel the same way. But overall, I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, I would honestly, I'd probably give this like a 4.5. It just wasn't. It
was subtitled. What are you trying to do to us?
I know, right? Well, the thing about it is it totally had the potential. I don't think that they had a big budget for it, but I think that they had an opportunity to probably refine the story a little bit more and make it more interesting. It's just the fact that I don't know if they wanted us to feel sorry for the father whose daughter had gotten killed by the teacher, because you can't feel sorry for him because he inflicted that same pain on other people's
10 times
kids. So I don't really, you know what I'm saying? So I don't really get what they were trying to say in it, but I think that they tried, but I don't know if I would necessarily recommend this. So 4 out of 10 for me. What about you, Moni?
Yeah, I would put it there, and I don't know. It was creative, I guess. I mean, it was different, but 4. So
I'd go with a 4. I think the other issue for me with this movie is maybe, and I kept telling myself that's what it was, but just kind of the cultural barrier of understanding like the cheesiness of behavior, if that makes any sense. It was just like, I thought we've kind of gotten away from girls being overly like, screaming and losing their shit, and then the guys being like, yes. Usually we've kind of gotten away from that. That's more of like an 80s thing than it is, 2020. But so that kind of bugged me. And some of the other cultural stuff, I just looked at as cliche and cheesy. Because I've seen other Korean movies that aren't like that. And so I just was kind of disappointed that it was so just really cheesy. Their behavior was cheesy to me, just screamy and whiny. And yeah, they were scared. And there were times that I was like, yeah, okay, they're kids. I would act like that. And then other times I was like, oh my God, give me a break. Like enough screaming, squealing.
That's when you read the subtitles and watch it on mute. For
yeah.
Sure.
So I'd give it a 4. I give it a 4 just because you're right. The death scenes were very clever. And, they did put an effort of trying to throw some different surprises in there, here and there, especially at the end of figuring out who's doing this. Is it a ghost or is it a person? And then who killed the girl? Because then they start digging up clues that this is somehow related to this girl's death. So there was an effort. I guess I just felt like the delivery, the acting wasn't that great to me. So that was kind of did it for me.
Yeah.
Just because they were only screaming and dying. I mean, maybe they just didn't get an opportunity to flex their acting muscles.
Could we had a little more plot character development instead of screaming and squealing?
Now, I know that we sped through this review, and actually, upon finishing this, because I know that the show is definitely not going to be as long as it usually is, right. There was another movie that I did watch that I'd like to recommend. It's called Uncorked, and it's on Netflix as well. Okay. It's a movie about a guy named Elijah, and he's basically trying to balance his dream of becoming a master sommelier with his father's expectations that he'll carry on the family's Memphis barbecue business. So I watched this movie, and it's a movie that I feel like would probably have been best served if they would have maybe made it, maybe a limited series. But it's definitely pretty cool. It kind of shows the conflict between a young man, excuse me, being pressured, or basically the father is wanting, his son to obviously continue the business, which has been in the family, but, the son, a kid from Memphis wants to be a master sommelier. Until I watched this movie, I didn't really know how much went into becoming a sommelier. So now I'm like Googling, trying to see, but apparently it's very difficult. And, Elijah has a lot of stuff going on. His mom has cancer. His dad's trying to get him to stay in the business. He's trying to look forward to his life, from a small town. I think it's pretty cool. The ending, it's not a typical ending that you would think for a movie like this, because the whole movie you're setting up to kind of think how things were going to close out in the end. But even with the ending that they used, it's kind of an ending that a lot of people have had in their own lives. I really do hope that they expand upon this story, but that's a recommend too. It's something that you could watch with the family, as well. It's considered mature, but it's probably just mature, based on like some words that are used and things like that. But that is my last. But that's my last recommend. Is there anything else that y'all want to kind of put out there that might have jarred your memory of something that you've watched, or do we close this puppy out?
I can't remember. Honestly, yes, last week was such a blur that I can't remember. I mean, when you put out Platform, I was like, oh yeah, I watched that. Like, I don't remember anything I watched. Tiger King, maybe that's what happened, is I watched Tiger King and I just kind of walked around in a redneck like fog for a good week where I've forgotten things that I did. I don't know, but I watched Tiger King, The Platform, and then Dark. And Dark was really, out of all of those, Dark was definitely my favorite. So that's all I got. I'm lame, apparently. I feel kind of bad.
I've been working my ass off in the comic sphere, which I know isn't generally related to what we're talking about, but there is something horror sci-fi that I can recommend in comics that's available for free for a limited time. It is only for Apple, like iOS users, but it is, I sent it to Christy, but she may have been in a fever dream. It's called Upgrade Soul, and The author is a friend of mine. He did the drawings and the writing. But his name is Ezra Clayton Daniels. He's an award-winning comics writer. But Upgrade Soul is a really creepy, thought-provoking comic. And if you go to the App Store, you can actually download a 3D experience of the book where you can actually read it and like be immersed in it somehow. It's really, really super like next level. I was like, you made me the coolest mom in suburbia to not only recommend like a book, a book right now, but to be like, but also it's a 3D experience. So it's like next level. We don't need Oprah's book club right now. So anyway, Upgrade Soul, Ezra Clayton Daniels in the App Store is free to download right now. And I think that if you like some of the sci-fi and horror that we talk about as movies on the show, that you will enjoy this read. It's a thought-provoking one. And then I wanted to shout out to two of our creepers, Steve and Stephanie. I'm not going to give last names, but they joined me on a 2-hour live webinar last Friday. Time has no meaning. We're doing live every Friday. And I will send out the Zoom invites in case any of the creepers would like to hang out with me and some special guests in the comics world. And we're doing it every Friday night. The times are Central Times, but it's late enough that if you're still working during the day, even if you're on Pacific Time, you should be able to join us, usually about 7 p.m/5 p.m. But I will put out the information on that as they come. I can tell you some of the big names if you're into comics that you may have heard of, which will include Matt Fraction, Lila Sturges. We're going live with Lila Sturges. That's confirmed this coming Friday. We will have Grace Ellis. We will have Johnny Christmas, Kelly Sue DeConnick. So just name dropping some of the big people that we have coming up in the comic sphere, but some of them do write horror comics and things. And like I said, I'll share if you guys just would like to hang out with us. I think Christy and I are going to do, and Yardley, of course, you're welcome to join us, but we're going to do a ghost storytelling. I have a friend that's going to join us to talk about her experience living in a haunted house in Pasadena. And she had at least 6 different entities. So we're going to do that live probably next Thursday, again in the after hours, so that it's late enough for people who still trying to like work and homeschool. But so Thursday, I'm going to give a date just so whenever this drops, it'll still make sense. We're looking at Thursday, April 9th for a live stream. We're going to figure out how to either do it on Zoom and or Facebook Live, but we'll find a way and we'll let you guys know.
Okay. Also, when you were talking about books, I remembered I read one book and then I'm in the middle of reading another one, anticipating the new one he has coming out. But the first book I read, these are horror / sci-fi-ish type stories, so they would be something that might interest you guys. The first one's called Recursion, and it's by Blake Crouch, and it's a bizarre story. It kind of goes in, their ins and outs are a little out there, but this guy apparently is a really talented writer I've never even heard of. So I just got introduced with this one book, and then I plan on writing a new one. But it's about an epidemic, so that wasn't really my draw to it. It just kind of accidentally happened that way. But it says at first it looks like a disease, an epidemic that spreads through no known means, driving its victims mad with memories of a life they never lived. But the force that's sweeping the world is no pathogen. It's just the first shockwave unleashed by a stunning discovery. And what's in jeopardy is not our minds, but the very fabric of time itself. So it's about time, but it first starts out as an epidemic of the mind, like it's a fucked up mind thing. So, and then for anybody who remembers that we interviewed Grady Hendrix, a really talented.
He has so much horror content coming out right now.
Yeah, he's great. I'm currently reading We Sold Our Souls. I had read My Best Friend's Exorcism, and it was really good. So I'm now reading We Sold Our Souls with the anticipation of him coming out with his new book called The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. So it's supposed to be pretty good. he is really clever and funny. He has a lot of pop culture references in his stories. And the my best friend's exorcism took place in the 80s, and so it was a lot of 80s references. And then We Sold Our Souls is like death metal music, and this band that was almost there and didn't make it, and it's because the lead singer sold his soul to the devil to become famous. So then he
Nice.
went off and became like this super famous dude, and the guitar player is working at like a Best Western hotel. So she decides to approach him and confront him about what an asshole he is, and things take a very, very mysteriously strange turn. So I haven't finished it yet, but so far it's really good. And then I don't know when the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires is. I've already pre-ordered it. I know it's like maybe this month. He says it's fried green tomatoes and steel magnolias meet Dracula, and the southern flavored supernatural thriller set in the 90s about a woman's book club that must protect its suburban community from a mysterious and handsome stranger who turns out to be a blood-sucking fiend. Sounds kind of like Fright Night too, and in that type of aspect, but more the parents are and I remember he talked about this book when he was on the show. He said it was very much because he usually does like young kids in his stories, but this one he decided to do the parents. So I'm really interested in that as a parent, finally seeing us being like not the lamos who are assholes who don't never believe the kids, and you know what I mean? Like we're actually the ones doing something for once in a story. So I'm excited to read this one too. But I would definitely recommend his other books. I have not read the one called Horror Store, which looks like an IKEA magazine, but it's my next on the list.
That cover cracks me.
It is hysterical. And the craziest part about it is the day after we interviewed him, my friend and her husband, Carrie Yardley, her husband Dave bought that book in a bookstore at an airport like a month before because he liked the cover. And so I see it sitting on their coffee table, and I was like, oh my God, I just interviewed that guy. It was so funny. It's such a small world.
Such a surreal moment.
Yeah.
I still remember like you were like, yeah, we're interviewing an author. I'm like, okay. And I like didn't even pay attention. Then like 10 minutes before I was supposed to go on the show, I'm like, holy shit, it's Grady.
Yeah, he's really talented, and this isn't why I like him, but I really respect how he gives a continuous shining spotlight to 70s and 80s women horror authors. Like he's really involved in bringing attention to these women, because I guess back then they didn't really get a lot of notoriety. And he spends a lot of time on his Twitter and his social medias digging up all these old treasures of horror novels and doing reviews and pushing them out there. So look up Grady Hendrix on your social medias if you really enjoy he's a very clever writer, and his books are really good. So that's all I got.
All right. I haven't seen any a ton of new trailers lately, probably because I haven't necessarily been looking for them, but we know that they exist out there. We definitely need to kind of get caught up on a lot of upcoming things. Granted, with all of this coronavirus stuff going on, we know that the release dates for a lot of these feature films and documentaries, unless they're on streaming, are probably going to get pushed back, but it still doesn't mean that we can't talk about certain things that are coming up or things that we're excited for when hopefully we move beyond all of this craziness. So I think with that, I will leave it there. I think everybody should give their social media handles. How can they find you on social media, Christy?
You can find me Creepin' at Christy on Instagram and Creepin_it on Twitter. And then also, y'all, we have a texting service. If you text CREEP to 21,000, you can ask us anything you want, any questions, any recommendations. You have a story, just want to say hi. That is an option, and I collect the texts and put them on the show for us to answer, and haven't gotten very many lately, and I know that's just because it's a different time right now. I don't think people are really thinking, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to text Creepin' It Real. But that on top of our Patreon, on top of our Facebook Live show that we have coming up. You don't just have to hang out with us on podcasts, because I know not very many people are listening to podcasts right now. So you can reach us other places too. Yay. Yay, you aren't you lucky?
All right. Where can everybody look you up?
I am Moni Bear across the board, and I also am very interactive with you guys on Facebook, on our Facebook page for the Creepin' It Real show. So find me either or.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at militant_marker. And as always, this has been fun, talking about movies and different things that are going on in pop culture. And as always, creep it real.
Lights out, all I do is say so. You're wrong, thinking you're right. I fought you for days. There's too many ways. I'm fed up, all I do is wonder to myself.